Boys, I put out a ban list prediction video, and as most ban list prediction videos go, some of you greatly agreed and some of you greatly disagreed. It's a hot button topic issue. You know how it is when it comes to ban lists and Yu-Gi-Oh. Everyone's got their own opinion, and then Konami comes out of nowhere and hits just some random shit no one expected. Let's go. That's what I like to hear. But something that caught my eye when I was reading the comments of that video was this comment right here by Soul Sick. I probably butchered your name. I apologize in advance. I'm so sorry. But he commented, I agree with your idea behind unbanning Dragoon. It's situations like this where I actually kind of miss the Duel Link style of ban list and how it functions. Imagine if we had that in the TCG, just as a very loose example. Imagine limiting Shurag to 1, Tinky to 1. Under Duel Link's ban list rules, that means the Tri-Brigade player must choose between Shurag or Tinky. This leaves Tinky playable in rogue decks that may need it. Taking a similar philosophy to broken generic cards like Dragoon, you can also make the meta decks can't use it without sacrificing one or more of their own important cards, but most rogue decks are free to use the card, making everything more balanced. Adding to this example, imagine limiting Golden Lord or Skill Drain to 1. Now Eldritch players can't play Skill Drain or Imperial Order because Golden Lord's too important for the deck to sacrifice. Another example, limit Rongo to 1 as an important Phantom Knight card is usually a one of anyways. Pure Phantom Knight is unhindered, but now they cannot play Rongo Bongo. And yeah, this got me wondering. My brain juice is flowing, and I said, hey, why don't we just fucking compare the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links ban list to the Master Duel ban list, the philosophy behind the ban lists, and kind of how they are done. And here we are. Let's get into it. Start off with the Master Duel ban list. I'm going to explain kind of how each ban list works for people who play maybe one of the games, not both of them. I wanted to mention, you know, what each ban list does, what I personally like about each ban list, and what I personally don't like about each ban list, and we'll kind of go from there. So the Master Duel ban list is very straightforward. Semi-limited cards means there's a little 2 next to them. That means you can only play 2 copies of the card. Limited means you can only play 1 copy of the card, and forbidden just outright means you cannot play anything. And if something's not on here, that means you can play the card fully at 3 copies. Very, very straightforward philosophy behind the ban list. And it basically, because the big difference being you could play 40 cards minimum in Master Duel, where Duel Links you can only play 20 cards minimum, you are hitting consistency of cards. That's the number one thing you're kind of hitting with this style of ban list. On top of that, when we talk about extra deck cards that get hit on the ban list, that just means you can't spam those extra deck cards anymore. For example, Zeus is a very powerful card, but you only have one that you can ever sub it, and then that's it, no more after that, especially since in Master Duel those types of cards are usually on-demand summon cards. Now, what I like about this style of ban list is you can kind of play with how good or bad something is. So for example, if something's been forbidden for a very long time, it may come back to the limit list, and then the semi-limited list, and then finally free, and it's a more you know, you can kind of play with the ban list in a way to try and figure out what would actually best work for a certain deck when it comes to banning things. On top of that, you're able to put multiple archetype type cards. So if an archetype has multiple problematic cards, for example, the Sky Striker cards, you can just hit multiple of them to only impact consistency rather than just, oh, you put 2 cards on there, well, I'm dead until the next ban list because you accidentally over nerfed me. And on top of that, like, you know, sometimes in Duel Links, we'd see them put something on the ban list and then later have to unban it and ban something else because it just wouldn't work in the future, but they still wanted to keep said archetype completely limited. What I don't really like so much about the Master Duel style is that if something is too strong, it's considered too strong for everybody, right? It's so like Rongo Bongo, Dragoon. I'll use Dragoon as an example because that's the one I gave as an example to begin with. Dragoon is considered too strong in Master Duel because all the meta decks, they just have to get 2 effect monsters on the board, and that's it. That's a Dragoon. That's one of the best boss monsters we've ever seen in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, at least up until now, before DPE and all that shit comes out. And you just get to use it just like that, just for having 2 effect monsters. And that is very powerful. But you know what isn't so powerful? Rogue decks that could also make Dragoon under, Max C, or make a Dragoon to make their kind of okay board actually have a negate available, right? So that's kind of the problem with the Master Duel style of banning cards. If there's something like a Dragoon or something like that, it's just gone completely from the game, and it kind of has to be, rather than, well, I'm going to kill the entire archetype. Same with cards like VFD, whenever like we see Gene Raider make VFD, we don't get angry, but when Virtual World's turboing out VFD every single game, it feels like a problematic card. But if a random rogue deck were to make it, you're like, oh wow, that deck just made VFD, that's crazy. So that's pretty much the kind of con for me when it comes to Master Duel. Now let's talk about the Duel Links style of doing things. Duel Links does it in a very different way, but it's a very interesting way. There's of course forbidden. If a card is forbidden, you just outright cannot use it. But whatever class you belong to, either limit 1, you have a little 1, a limit 2, you have a little 2, or limit 3, they actually have a limit 3 category. Whatever class you belong to, you can only play that many number of those cards. So for example, if I play Monster Reborn, I cannot play in the same deck any other one of these cards that have a 1 next to it. So I can't play Monster Reborn if I'm also going to play Necros of Valkyris. So most Necros decks don't have access to Monster Reborn. I can't play it in a Karakuri deck. I can't play it in a Kawaki deck if I'm using these cards. I have to actively drop Monster Reborn to play those cards in those decks. Blue Eyes, Azure Eyes Silver Dragon for Blue Eyes White Dragon players, they can't play Monster Reborn. And this goes for the same for Limit 2 and Limit 3 cards. And that's pretty much the philosophy behind Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. Their philosophy being that cards that are too strong, or decks that are too strong, we don't want them to play certain cards. Now, what I like about this is you're able to heavily limit cards and decks and archetypes from very powerful, cards like Levianeer, for example. Duel Links players have determined that Levianeer should not be a card that's playable in every single deck. You can also have powerful cards like Monster Reborn for their meta, obviously not in Master Duel's meta, but in their meta, Monster Reborn is an extremely powerful card. And it's okay at limit 1 if we take other powerful cards out of archetypes that would abuse Monster Reborn. And I think that's a super cool idea to balance the game. The downside, there's a couple of downsides. One, there tends to be like a category that's a little bit tougher. For example, if your deck receives a limit 2, it's pretty much because of Treacherous Trap Hole in Duel Links. And because of enemy controller, 2 extremely blowout potential cards, and pretty much anything that gets put on the limit list is put on there because of these cards. And 2, there's like an unwritten rule with Duel Links that like main box UR cards cannot go below limit 3. So that's why Limit 3 was actually created, because they needed to nerf the Alistair and Element Saber engine. So they created Limit 3 to put these on there to put with Cosmic Cyclone without, putting it on the Limit 2 or on the Limit 1. And they're usually very hesitant with banning SR/UR cards. They finally did it. They finally banned Hey Trunade, but it took them so long just to get to that point, and they still haven't hit, forbid, bigger problematic cards to the overall game. So that's kind of the pros and cons for Duel Links. Now, in terms of what do I like more, or what's my opinion on ban lists, they each have their own positives, and they're both absolutely fine. There's I'm not going to go on a campaign saying Master Duel has to do this ban list, Duel Links has to do this ban list, or anything like that. But I think at the end of the day, by a little smidge, I actually do prefer the way Duel Links does their ban list, and I wish it was something that Master Duel maybe would take into consideration, maybe as a new format or something, and they would figure it out. Maybe it's too much work, maybe that's just copium on my side, but I do like the idea of, you know, just again, using Dragoon as an example, you know, taking cards that are abusing that deck and just giving them, you know, limit ones, especially if it's just a card they already play a one of anyway. So all it really does is the ban, you're just playing the pure version of your deck, but you can't play Dragoon, right? I think that's super cool because now other decks that are garbage can play things like Dragoon, and it's still fine. It's trickier, the Duel Links ban list, to get it right. Multiple times we've seen cards like Dark Magician cards, you know, get banned and unbanned and rebanned and unbanned and shifted and limit 1, limit 2, limit 3. So, you know, in terms of flexibility, this is where the Master Duel ban list wins, right? Where, you know, you can kind of just keep hitting it up and down the ban list until it finally fits right. Sometimes you have to take cards completely off and put them back on, etc., etc., etc. But I believe if the weird restriction of like UR cards can't go below limit 3 or whatever, and any card can be put anywhere at any time, like you could just take Levianeer and put it to hard limit 1 or whatever, I think the ban list, that version of the ban list would be A, way more interesting to kind of figure out what decks you're going to play, and B, would just create a better, healthier metagame, in my opinion, rather than just having kind of like the same meta decks win over and over and over because they have access to cards until those cards eventually get banned because they're oppressive floodgates or whatever the situation may be. But that's just my opinion. You guys let me know down in the comments which ban list version you prefer. I don't think there's like a straight up right answer to this. I think it's just, it literally comes down to preference and what you like to see out of Yu-Gi-Oh! And for me, I love it when rogue decks, even if those rogue decks are using popular engines or whatever the case may be, as long as the rogue deck is still there and is still winning, I think I enjoy that. I'm willing to take the lesser evil of like letting powerful cards run amok if those rogue decks can be good with you know, with already strong decks not having access to those cards. I really like that philosophy, and I wish they just give the Duel Links ban list another shot with less, you know, politics around how they actually ban cards themselves. That's going to be it from me. You guys let me know what you prefer. Like, comment, subscribe, get us into the algorithm. I only ask because I have to play the YouTube game. You guys know how it is. We got to get into the algorithm to explode and get up there. I love you guys. Till the next video.